Hello. So I'm just getting this set up on the right screen so that I'm actually looking at you. What's up, y'all? I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit distracted by the fact that my computer is like whirring. Anyways, welcome to Fiends YouTube Tarot Live. It's really funny because today I spent the better part of like 3 or 4 hours trying to record this, and it like wouldn't save on my phone, wouldn't do it, just it like nothing was doing the thing that I needed it to. And I kind of took it as a sign that I needed to come on here live, because I was like, I'll film it with my new gimbal and be from above and it'll be beautiful. Not that this isn't beautiful, welcome to my office, but you know, I think that sometimes the drive towards perfectionism in any kind of work can lead us to not do it. So I was kind of at the point of being like, well, fuck it. And if I'm not going to do it this way, then I'm not going to do it. And I was like, that's like not how I want to show up in this. So I've read 2 of these files like 3 times, but I feel like each time I look at it, I get a little bit more in depth. And then one of them is kind of a surprise to me. So I'm going to be reading with 3 decks tonight, and there's 3 piles. There's 3 piles of cards, and I will hold I will hold them up for you. So we've got pile 1 with some Imperial Topaz, and this is like a beautiful stone for abundance and affluence. Yeah, I will write more about that in the description. I'm not necessarily a crystal expert, but it is what it is. And then I have the second pile, which has some purple amethyst in it, which is good for like your third eye and intuition, healing the emotional body, creativity. That's the fun stuff. It's a very spiritual stone. And then we have some blue kyanite, which also still has some salt on it, because all of these piles originally had salt on them too, because I wasn't going to hold them up. But here we are. There's pile number 3, some blue kyanite here. So this is also like the cover for this video. So I think that if you pause it or go back to that, it'll be there, and then I'll try at the end to edit in like a little picture of it so that the people who are watching in hindsight have this. My name is Forest, by the way. I guess there's going to be people who aren't seeing this. I'm the owner of Fiends, Fiends Collective, which is the page that you're watching this on. I'm the resident reader there. I've been reading for about 7 years, and yeah, I've been reading full-time for over a year now, which is pretty cool. But yeah, and then the decks that I'm reading with today, I have my like OG Rider-Waite. It's from 1971, so it'll be 50 in the new year, which is a little bit crazy. This is the first deck I ever had bought, and the only one that I really use for readings. I have some Astrology Reading Cards as well, and these are from Alison Chester Lambert and Richard Crooks. And I just like got these in the shop and felt called to use them, so I thought I would bring them in and test them out. And then I have like one of my favorites, and actually the only other deck that I read with ever, literally, is the Archetypes deck by Kim Krans, and I adore her work. And those are the circular cards, so I'm very excited to dive into these. First on the menu, if this was the one that was calling to you, is the little topaz here. So first, I'm going to look at what the astrology cards are. We have the house, the zodiac sign, and the planet. So I'm going to do, yeah, planet, zodiac sign, house. So you guys can see it there. And how I've been interpreting this is Jupiter right now, actually astrologically, maybe not when you're reading this, but right now it is, it's in a sign that it's not strong in. It's not in a strong position. It's in Capricorn. And we're in the season that it rules. So we're in Sagittarius season as I'm filming this on December 1st. And really what's going on here is this card of like luck, expansion, and growth. And we're in a time when we're really seeing how we have to also go through hard patches to be able to make that work. So it talks about how sometimes we find abundance through restriction. It talks about how you know, we can really hone in on what it is that we believe and think deep down. And when we have the Leo card here as well, we're really diving into, okay, so what is it that you have pride in? What is it that you need to take leadership in? What is it that you need to take responsibility for? And both of these cards really talk about the importance of self-belief. It's like in part of like the little description at the bottom. And I think that's really important, because if we don't believe that something is possible, then we can't expand and grow into it. And it takes a kind of like, yeah, like a self-belief, but like also a self-trust and a self-reliance and self-compassion to know that we can believe in ourselves even when we aren't perfect, and that we can like take the time to show up and kind of slow down and learn what it is we need to do to show up in that place authentically and with, I think, integrity. And then we have the third house, and this is about learning something, going deeper. It's the card of like your neighborhood. I really see this as like your root structures, your communities, where it is that you know you need to show up within yourself and within places that are familiar to you. This also doesn't have to actually mean community, like physically, like in like your neighborhood. It can be like your community of like, okay, what is the work that you do? Do you have like a hobby of some sort, and really looking at those things and how they stabilize you. And so I think part of this is knowing that in order to kind of like have the foliage and have all the bloom, that we need to do the root work and we need to do the structure work. There's some like nice like turning in energy about this, and we are stepping into the winter season. And I think that also knowing that Jupiter is going to be moving to into Aquarius, and that's going to be conjuncting Saturn on the 21st, that there's also like a lot of room for like growth and expansion in this card set as well, and kind of just like remembering that, but also remembering that like, you know, we have to sometimes sacrifice our pride, and we have to sometimes sacrifice our fear in order to get closer to the things that we're actually trying to achieve. And also paring things back. We don't have to do so much in order to be doing enough. And I think that's, really a big part of what these cards are saying. And then we have the comic. All right. So this is like the Kim Krans deck. I love this card. I love this card and its meaning. I love this card in its aestheticism. It's hilarious. But I think that when we think of the comedian, there's often this kind of like connotation, towards not like being serious necessarily, or like kind of like maybe not having like a higher level of intelligence, if you will. Like we think of like the Joker and the courts and stuff like that. But actually, like the comedian is this really beautiful kind of transcendent sign that is able to be in a moment and also outside of a moment to see that whole perspective, to be able to bring something in to make that situation funny, you know, and it's a recognition of like the comedy and tragedy scale as well, and knowing that we can kind of choose how it is that we want to show up in that. So we can, really come into that with some idea of that we don't have to take ourselves so seriously, that we don't have to take life so seriously, and that even when we're doing this like work down here in the roots, and that we are building important structures, that like it's okay if we ask questions, if we get it wrong, if we're not sure, if we're curious. It's okay to laugh at ourselves. You know, it's okay to be doing like, you know, things that feel really important to us, and also just be like, what the fuck? Like I don't understand, or I feel lost or confused, or this feels ridiculous. Because sometimes becoming ourselves and doing life things is ridiculous. And I think that's also part of the Leo card, and like kind of like, you know, being able to be proud in that, being able to be playful with ourselves, even when we're learning hard things. And I think that is part of the Jupiter card too. It's really an attitude, like seeking that attitude within yourself, and knowing that it is an attitude that makes the situation. So also when we're talking about Jupiter at its core, and like really like it is about luck and expansion and growth and abundance, you know, it's like, okay, so what does that mean for you, and what does it mean for yourself to take accountability for how that actually feels in your body, and what it is that you need to do to navigate being able to hold that, you know. So if like things are hard, we also need to be able to laugh at ourselves to kind of balance that. That's kind of the energy that's going on here. And then we have 4 cards down here for the Rider-Waite. So, okay, the original order of these was the Wheel of Fortune, the 7 of Wands, and sorry, I've read this so many times that I know exactly what order the cards are supposed to go in now. All right. So, I guess this is kind of backwards on camera, whatever. We're going to start with the Wheel of Fortune. So I'm going to put these guys down. And whatever. Well, I guess I can hold 2. Sorry. Still figuring it out. All right. So I start with the Wheel of Fortune, and in tarot, in the major arcana, the Fool's Journey, the Wheel of Fortune shows up as like a vision, which I think is really cool. So it's kind of our ability, much like the comedian, the comic, to step outside of what it is that we're doing, experiencing, a part of, and go, okay, so what is this pattern? You know, that is really the Wheel of Fortune. It's seeing what your options are, essentially, kind of like the likelihood that something that you've already done or that's familiar to you is going to cycle back around. And I think that part of this card is understanding that there's knowledge kind of in all aspects of our cycle. So it's not just saying like, oh, this is how I show up in relationships, or this is how I show up at work or in routine, or in like how it is that I like display my feelings. It's kind of like the intrinsic overall patterns that everything weaves into. Because this is a turn inwards card, it's really about your internal patterns and like how it is that that shows up in all of this. So, you know, looking back at the rest of the reading, it's really like, okay, so what are your personal patterns of belief, and how it is that you like move forward with things that you feel excited about, that you care about, that you want to like dive deeper into, and can you recognize that yeah, like you're a part of changing your cycles, and that if you feel comfortable in a cycle that's not serving you anymore, that it's about also choosing what it is that you feel like you actually want to focus on. And so the Seven of Wands here, the wands are about like passion, desire, will. And this is really a card that is understanding that there are so many things that we want to be doing. And sometimes it's really hard to figure out what it is that we're supposed to be doing, how it is that we're supposed to be showing up in everything that's going on in our life path. And you know, I think that I see the wands like our walking sticks to becoming ourselves. So, you know, it feels like, okay, well, I want to do all of these things and pursue all of these things. And how do I do that? How do I break out of this pattern of wanting to do everything and therefore not being able to focus on anything? And coming into the world reverse and understanding like, okay, so like, you know, what is the embodiment of what it is that you want to be doing? Like, you know, kind of taking yourself out of the how and the what's and asking yourself, okay, what that actually feels like, and moving from that inward place of alignment of the feeling that you're searching for, and then moving outwards and going, okay, so you know, when I start to feel that, like, what are things that feel connected to this feeling? Is there a certain kind of work? Is there a certain thing that you feel skilled in or called to, that allows you to kind of play into that? And how are you willing to show up in that? Again, because we're talking about like the Leo here as well, and like, where is it that it's your responsibility to show up with integrity within yourself? And you know, part of the connection between the Seven of Wands and the World card is really understanding that sometimes we have to not do everything in order to come into alignment with something. You know, we have to be willing to forfeit like doing all of the things or doing them all perfectly, or figuring out every single aspect and being like, okay, what is the core of what it is that I'm trying to do? Can I do that? Like, for example, me today with the tarot reading, it's like, okay, so you're trying to do all of these different things, like trying to learn how to film on a gimbal and like clear out your phone storage and put together a video for a live thing. And it's like, okay, what's the core of this reading tarot? All right, let's get back to that. And whatever it is for you, for that showing up as well. And then from the world, from this kind of place of like, okay, so what does it mean to surrender? What does it mean to show up with integrity in yourself, and let go of the baggage of having to do everything or having to do everything a certain way, seeing the patterns that you have, and the things that stop you from doing what it is that you need to do, maybe being able to like kind of laugh at yourself, and really like look at what it is that your expectations of yourself are, and see if maybe you can actually be more successful if your boundaries are smaller. So I think that like Jupiter and looking at abundance or restriction in Capricorn is really going, what's the core of this? What's really going to stabilize this? And then being able to build out. And then you have the Page of Pentacles, and I love Page cards. They're really this like beautiful childlike energy, and the Pentacles is about like the earthly material realm. It's about our resources, how it is that we connect to our bodies. And the Page is like this childlike energy, so it's full of curiosity and naivety and wonderment. And the Page of Pentacles holding this upright is really asking, okay, so you have to make some kind of an investment in order to move forward with what it is that you are that you're seeking, kind of this root work, and whatever it is you want to dive deeper into. It's simplifying it. You know, he doesn't have like a bunch of seeds. It's one seed, and like kind of the whole process of being like, all right, when are you going to sprout and root? And are you going to make it through your first winter? And like, you know, what kind of climate are you going to grow into? How fast are you going to grow? Like, you know, really seeing this is kind of like the beginning stages in a way, and being present for that whole process, and knowing that we can come into the state of this world card. Like, it doesn't have to be so out of reach and unattainable if we can kind of not narrow our focus, but refine our focus, and really ask ourselves, okay, if I, you know, have the ability to tune into this specific thing and kind of see it from an outside perspective, like the comic, and be able to bring that outside perspective into what it is that you're doing, then you'll find, I think, a lot more ease in how it is that you are wanting to move forward and what it is that looks like. All right. I guess I'll hold all of these up so that y'all can see them. That was awkward. Oh man, what am I doing? What am I doing? Right. Next up, we have Amethyst. Okay. So same thing. We're going to start with the planet cards, the house card, the zodiac card. And we've got Chiron and Scorpio in the second house. So Chiron is the wounded healer. And essentially what this looks like is just like where it is that we are not able to maybe do the work ourselves. Maybe we need community, maybe we need professional help. You know, there's just something there that says like, hey, this whole thing, like you're not going to be able to do that by yourself. And that's okay. I think that's really great. And so it's really looking at, okay, so where does that show up in Scorpio? And Scorpio really rules, it's like our psyche and like the deep truth of things. It's kind of like known as like getting the heart to the heart of it. I see it as like the ocean of the signs, you know, it can be really playful and joyful and fun, but at the end of the day, like that riptide can come out and really bring you in. And I think of the King of Cups a lot when I see this card, because it's also reminding us that we can have platforms, we can have stability when we're out in the thick of things, but really, yeah, figuring out what that is, and again, knowing that you don't have to be alone in it. And then we got the second house here, and the second house is like your assets, your finances, the things that you value. It feels very Venusian to me, like very Venus energy. So yeah, we have Chiron in Scorpio in the second house. So immediately what comes to mind is maybe like healing some deep-seated issues about like finance, about abundance, about what it is that's possible for you. And this can also be like in terms of like connection with others. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial, but I think that like really what's showing up is that like it is in that kind of house of like, okay, well, what is it that I value? You know, and that can be relationships. It can be like money things. It can be your home. It can be your job. It can be many things. How it is that you relate to that, like what's at the heart of those things is their fears, their trust, is their joy, is their ambition. And then also, yeah, having Chiron here. So knowing that when you are in these places, that it's okay to seek support, and how it is that you kind of start to heal and navigate this, that maybe you're not going to be able to figure it out alone. And I think this is actually quite a poignant card, or quite a poignant pile of cards, because I think that there's a lot of us that, yeah, like have that deep-seated fear or mistrust or whatever it is, like in the material, like especially financial world. And I think it's just because we're not taught it, you know, we don't really like talk about it, and it's a little bit of a taboo thing, which is funny because then we have the unseen for the Archetypes card. And this is kind of the taboo. It's also like ghosts and ancestors, the deepest parts of ourselves. It's kind of associated with like our bones as well, which I think is interesting about Scorpio, like this like really like this depth, like this intuitive deep depth, and how that is that shows up, and maybe what it is that we feel like is available to us, and how much is that we can access. And yeah, I think that the unseen here kind of also adds an element of like, okay, what is it that you believe in? And maybe like just believing things is not like an easy thing for you. Maybe just being like, yeah, I trust God, or I trust my ancestors or my spirits. Like maybe that isn't coming naturally for you right now. And so the unseen is kind of showing up as this reminder of like, okay, so what is it that you can do to find this belief? You know, are you watching this video and being like, okay, cool, I see this? Is there, you know, numbers showing up around you? Are there voices coming into your head or thoughts coming into your head that are trying to help you navigate something in this way? And I think that part of, you know, the message of the unseen is also that like sometimes the messages are in unseen places. You know, sometimes it shows up in like our physical body, sometimes it shows up in our digestive systems, in our dreams. So really asking yourself, okay, so maybe I'm not confronting this, maybe you're not feeling comfortable about what it is that these messages are sending you, and so it's showing up in kind of this like almost secretive way. And I would say that dreams are a very, very common place for this kind of work to show up. So maybe analyzing that, getting some Women Who Run with the Wolves going on. And then we have two tarot cards. So I've got the Six of Cups and the Ten of Cups, which I think is really, really poignant when we're looking at this, because this is quite a watery an intuitive start that we've got here. And so the Six of Cups is just the first card. It's funny because I've been contemplating this card a lot lately, and the cups are really, I think, at their core about nourishment and what it is that nourishes us. And the cups are essentially what it is that we believe we will fill in order to nourish ourselves. It's an assumption. And so this card is kind of coming back to where it is that those assumptions started from, where those stories and started from, like generally a childlike self, if you will, and being able to come back to that self and be like, hey man, so I don't have a house on a lake and 4 cars and a pony and a home theater yet, but this is what I have been able to do. This is what has nourished me, and it can even be like our expectations of like what our career is going to be or what our relationships are going to look like, and being able to come to those places of expectation and be like, okay, but look what I did put here. Even there was this expectation that I was going to be able to grow this or fill this. This is what's going on, and this has like little white flowers going on in it, right? And so it's really this idea of like, okay, how is it that you've been able to grow peace? How is it that you've been able to nourish yourself through things that are actually peaceful for you, and being able to come to a place of peace about what it is that you desire and the truth of filling those desires. And then we have the Ten of Cups reversed. I love the Ten of Cups reversed. I think it's a great card. It's really kind of this like, you know what, fuck all the requirements card. You be able to support ourselves and feel accomplished or nourished. We don't need to do everything all the time. You don't need to drink 4 green juices and go on a 20-kilometer run and meditate for 4 hours and always have a clean kitchen. Like, you don't need to do these things in order to be fulfilled. I think that part of this card is the reminder it's actually less, not more, that helps fulfill us, that helps us be nourished. It's going back to those basics, back to those simple things, back to the things that are kind of unseen, underrated, behind the radar, and recognizing that we're also not alone in that, and I think that when we can lower our expectations of the other people around us and also our illusions of the other people around us, I think that unseen is also expectations, and really understanding that, oh yeah, like not all of our expectations are useful. There's a point where they're motivating, and then there's a point where like, oh, my expectations are causing me misery, I think that comparison is the thief of joy, and the celebration even in this card for just being like, fuck the cups. And back here, they built a little house by like their well. That's how I see it. Like, they have well-being. Literally, they have a well of well-being. They don't need the cups anymore. They don't need to compartmentalize. There's not like a certain X amount of things that you have to do. I think it's like about arriving to that place within yourself where you're like, okay, cool, I can find what it is that I need here, and I don't need to carry the burden of that and to fulfill certain requirements in order to do that. And I think that like when we're really again going back to the second house, it's also like you don't need to have like X amount of dollars in your savings, or we don't need to have these kind of arbitrary requirements of like what it means to have a good life and what it means to be fulfilled and what it means to be successful. I think it's about connecting to something deeper. I think it's about connecting to gratitude and kind of these things that like are not seen and not material in our lives that allow us to feel connected and feel good about our connections. Oh. Alrighty, last but not least, we have blue kyanite. It's so pretty. All right. This is the pile I have not looked at, so I'm going to take a moment to read this. All right, we've got Pluto in Cancer in the first house. So Pluto, your ability to transform and take a big leap forward or rebirth. Yeah. Cancer, this energy is emotional, sensitive, caring, and loving. It may concern family, a mother, or a child. And then the first house, what people see and the impression that you give. Very interesting. Okay. We have the Pilgrim. We have the Knight of Swords, the Two of Wands, and the Two of Pentacles. All right, all right. So I'm going to go through these cards first and kind of talk about my impressions of them. I'm going to read also the description of the Pilgrim in the Archetypes book because it's not a card that I'm super familiar with. There are still a few of them that I haven't read too much about, so I'm excited to read that because Kim Krans is also incredible and has such in-depth descriptions. But anyways, let's dive into Pluto and Cancer in the first house. So yeah, I think that just off the bat, like looking at this, it's kind of like a transformation in terms of how it is that you nourish, how it is that you see yourself in the world. So really looking at, okay, like how is it that you're allowing yourself to transform? How is it that maybe you're connecting to also like cycles of transformation, and allowing that to be something that is supporting you, and like how it is that you appear in the world, maybe your role, or your conscious kind of like role in all of that. And Pluto is, yeah, this deeply transformative. I see it as kind of dreamy sign. So I think that also looking at Cancer, which is the moon, it's also like deeper than just like, okay, how is it that I show up in the world? I'm really feeling this like, oh, okay, it'll like affect how it is that you show up in the world. But I think the work here is really like tuning in deeper and being contemplative and being in tune with your own cycles and honoring that in order to show up with integrity and authenticity through, yeah, how it is that you see yourself in the world or the work that you do in your world. I think there's also a vulnerability to these cards. I think that transformation often starts with us kind of being in the state of like, well, I don't know how I feel, I don't know what's going on. It's that like butterfly feeling when butterflies before butterflies become butterflies, when they're caterpillars and they go into the cocoon, they literally disintegrate before becoming a butterfly. And that's kind of like what we feel like sometimes when we're in transformation. And I think that's why it's important when we don't really like know ourselves, or we are going through transformation, to tune into the core parts of ourselves. This can be like also as simple as like your circadian rhythms, and how is it that you're sleeping, and how is it that you're like waking up, and yeah, just like those general themes, and knowing that when you are more in attunement with that, and kind of these like more yin energies as well, like the deep psyche, and I think that like we see yin as like kind of this like cold energy, but I think that like it can be, but it's almost like how cool can be soothing in a way too. Like I think that this is like really about kind of that like okay, like I can see and trust what it is that I am at my core, and allowing that to come forward into how it is that you show up in the world as well. And I think that yeah, it does take transformation. It does take I think a lot of humility in a way too. To undergo transformation and just be in that. I don't think humility is like a bad thing necessarily. I think that it can be a really beautiful thing as well. All right, I'm just gonna pull up the Pilgrim here, and we're gonna dive into that. Archetypes, the Pilgrim 101. Okay, cool. All right, 101, the Pilgrim's 101, and we have the first house, which is interesting. And we also have Cancer, which is said to be like when spirit was born into the world, in some astrological traditions. Yes, anyways, the Pilgrim. Hold up this card for you so you can like see the Pilgrim card. For the Pilgrim, an outward journey is always an inward journey. This archetypal wanderer seeks wisdom, experience, and meaning in the farthest reaches of the globe and the deepest regions of the spirit. Others will wonder when the Pilgrim will settle down and claim a more conventional life, but the Pilgrim knows that the heart belongs in motion. Where there is motion, there is freedom, expansion, and growth. Responsibilities, social conventions, and logistics lull us to sleep, and soon the Pilgrim becomes veiled in the slumber of the day-to-day. Yet when this archetype awakens, it rallies our sense of adventure and leads us at the door towards a new reality. With the Pilgrim at your side, you will never lack the courage, nor do you need every amenity. Travel light, travel soon, your spirit needs it. When light, learns, grows, adapts, studies. When dark, aloof, non-committal, and flaky. Yeah, okay, so this makes a lot of sense with like transformation as well. And I think it's also, yeah, like about kind of coming out of like the rhythms that we assume we need to have. I think there's definitely like an adaptation that we have in modern society, and really allowing ourselves to understand that we can adapt to ourselves and our own needs, and like maybe that's the work that should be going on here, and really knowing that, yeah, that can be really challenging, and it does take like, again, inner transformation. Like we have to start with the deeper levels of ourselves in order to believe in enough to kind of like feel safe in moving forward in ways that feel more authentic to us, but maybe are unconventional, or maybe it's just like the idea that we have been trapping ourselves for a while, and what that looks like, and then what it looks like and feels like to awaken from that, and coming into that point where, yeah, maybe you do feel like you've been goopy for like a while, for like a long time, and now there's kind of coming to that like solidification point, that transformation point, and understanding, okay, so I need to do some shit. Like I need to like kind of like get on track and start moving forward, and understand that it's easy to be comforted in the stagnancy, but also it's not productive. And then we have the Knight of Swords. So within that, like really looking into the mind realm, and allowing yourself to, I think this is like about like creating new neural pathways. And I think it's about also like trying to do that like rapidly in a way, or like being in a time where, not trying to do that rapidly, but being in a place where that can happen. Where that can happen more rapidly. Also, like it's a white horse too, so moving forward with this peacefully, I think that's really important. And also power. Like when we think of white, it's really this it's an emanation, right? There's so much that can be brought from that, or that is attracted to that, that is a part of that and becomes that. And I think that it's understanding that like that's kind of your mind as well. Like there is this ability for that to be amplified. So moving swiftly with this path, but also knowing that this has a tendency to go like 10 years in the future in like 5 minutes, and that it can be more potent when we rein that back in and ask ourselves, okay, but how can I make space right now? Like, how is it that I can use my mind to create more space, more potential, more material with what it is that I'm doing now, so that when we're going down that path, it's not overgrown by the time we've got there. It's really, I think, like knowing that maybe it feels like we're doing like less, being present in the moment is also like the start, I think, of transformation in a way. It's like, oh fuck, okay, like you can understand that things are shifting, that there needs to, yeah, within Cancer, like be an attunement on a deeper level. And I think the first step is really just understanding that like this is a place that is going to like transform how it is that you show up, and like what it is that you're able to do, what it is that you think you're capable of. Really owning that for yourself, and knowing that like everyone starts somewhere, and so like allowing yourself to be somewhere. We have these doubles in here, right? So we got the Two of Pentacles and the Two of Wands. So the Pentacles is going into the earthly material realm, really looking at like our bodies, our senses of resources, I think also our sense of responsibility in terms of like how it is that we handle our material worlds, and what it is that actually looks like. And so moving forward, I think it's also this understanding of like, okay, we don't need to be actively like doing things all the time. Like we don't need to do so much, or we don't need to like illusion ourselves that we're the only ones responsible for kind of like making the Pentacles do their thing, for helping things in the material world balance out, so to say. So part of this is like a trust. It's a trust that, okay, like, I don't have to put more energy into worrying about the things in my life, and if they're going to kind of come out okay, because it's been okay every time. You made it to this point, like maybe it's been really hard, and maybe it hasn't been okay, but it has gotten to this point now where, even when it hasn't been okay, it has made it back to another point. Like there are ebbs and flows to it. And part of this card is saying that like when we take on kind of this role of trying to balance everything and make sure everything's okay, like I think honestly, like there's this like energy of like waiting for the shoe to drop too, of like really never being able to like take yourself out and like not be in control, because it feels scary. It feels like the world around you is unpredictable, and like you can't trust it, but actually you're exhausting yourself, and like you have to notice like when it is like the world's job to balance these things. So knowing that in order to move forward with building abundance for yourself, and building I think like especially like not even like abundance in terms of like the material world, but like affluence in a way, like in order to gain like kind of like the credit that you feel like you need, and the self-esteem and self-compassion that you need. It's also letting go of the narratives and the stories that you feel attached to, and that you feel like you have to keep perpetuating. Like if you're always telling yourself, oh, like I'm always gonna be poor, and I'm never gonna be able to do this, or I can never change how it is that I look on the outside, or like and I think like on the outside, I mean like in terms of like our reputation, or like our Instagram or something, not like literally what we look like, although I guess it can be that, but like I think there's definitely like a feeling of like wanting to control everything, and then therefore not being able to do enough, like being exhausted by that. So don't exhaust yourself. And I think it's coming back to this idea of, okay, what is it that you can do? How can you make space in the present moment to be able to let go of that, trust the universe, and doing its part to balance things. And then coming into the Two of Pentacles, or the Two of Wands, which is a really interesting card here, because the person here is on top of their tower, right? So the tower in tarot really represents our ego ego, and I think that there's like duality in how our ego shows up. I think it can show up in like a more human form as something that we build a relationship with, and I think it can show up in a more like stoic and stagnant form as like it's something that we protect ourselves with, and that's kind of how it's showing up here. And if we're looking at the pentacle or the wands as or walking sticks to becoming ourselves, our passions, things that we want to move forward with in life. It's understanding that how are you going to move forward if you're in a place of security and you're in a place of feeling more comfortable where it is that you've built yourself up instead of going out and learning more. And so really understanding that in order to do the things in the world that feel like you want to expand into, that you need to believe that's possible, and you also need to kind of sacrifice what it is that you want to be or what you feel attached to as a story and your material world cycles, and start to actually like kind of break out of that, and I think that all of these readings in a way feed into each other, and that they're kind of talking about this deeper, like, okay, what is it that you believe in, and can you actually step back and believe in that? Like, can you allow yourself to believe that you will be supported, that there is something out there that's looking out for you, that when you make the space that things will show up. And so it's asking yourself, okay, if I see the world, if I see the world in my hand, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And am I prepared to hold that? Am I prepared to show up for that? Am I prepared to leave places where I maybe feel protected, but I'm not growing, I'm not curious, I'm not on my path, and go out and know that the things that I love are going to support me. So thank you so much for tuning in to my little live stream. Yeah, it's very interesting being like, oh, there's people on the other end, but like, I don't know who you are and I can't see you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that it resonated with you in some way. Yeah, and if there's ever any questions, you can always pop onto the Fiends Instagram and find us there. If you did enjoy it, like, subscribe. I will be getting better. I don't know if that really like matters or if it was bad in any way. Michelle Bowden, you're welcome. Thank you as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of nerve-wracking starting anything. And I think that being honest about that process is also kind of liberating. Like, hello, online in a place that like I don't actually feel like I have a whole lot of control. YouTube is kind of a mystery to me, and also has been like a little bit frustrating. And I learned today that you need to have 1,000 followers in order to record live from your phone. So for me, that poses the challenge of like, okay, well, I'm a perfectionist and I am much better at recording with my phone. So how am I going to, build up my esteem in this way? So I really appreciate anyone who's been watching this. I wanted it to also be concise. Sometimes I see that things are like 3 hours long and I'm like, I can't spend 3 hours watching a tarot reading. So I hope this was beneficial in that way for you as well. And yeah. You can find me at the Forest Eden. You can find my business at fiends_co or fiendsco.ca. And yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting. Thanks for watching. Leave us a comment if that feels good. And yeah, enjoy whatever it is that you are about to embark on next.